Well, good morning, sir.
Top of the morning to you. Well, actually, top of the morning to me. You're in Texas, so you've got a
Well, it's
couple hours.
still morning. It's only 10:30 over here, so
You got
that's
a couple hours on me.
yeah. How are
All
you,
right.
good sir?
Well, that's one of those loaded questions, right? When people ask, "Hey, how you doing?" You have to gauge
How's your morning going so far? How about that?
how much time do I have? Do they really want to know how I'm doing, or am I supposed to just spit back the normal? Oh, I'm good. How are you? All right, bye. Yeah.
How's your morning going so far?
Uh,
How about
also a loaded question. No, I overslept my. I actually didn't oversleep my alarm. I just completely forgot to set my alarm, and so my first thing that I do on Friday mornings is the Friday morning fiasco with
that?
Doug TeNapel and
Mhm,
Q from Out of the Darkness.
mhm.
Um, and so I was about 15 minutes late in. Good, sometimes Q doesn't show up and it's just Doug, and it's like, oh, poor Doug. Well, he's fine. He's fine on his own, right? He doesn't need. But
Yeah,
I showed up in there, and fortunately, Q was in there, and they were at it, so they didn't miss me much. But I woke up late, went in there like within 2 minutes of waking up with my eyes all puffy and everything, and then had some technical issues. I've got email issues. I've got my. So you asked, and I'm going to tell you how was my morning. I getting in Bible every morning. I had to start a new anyway, I had to send it
yeah.
to another email account and blah blah blah. But for you, I'm here. All right, what are we talking about?
We are talking about core values, specifically the core value of integrity, real integrity. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in our country, in the world, and especially everything within our country. There's so many paths we could go down, whether it be certain drugs found in a certain house that's white, or whether it be a certain film that has come out with Jim Caviezel that is exposing a certain horrific thing going on in the world. Of course, being on this platform, I have to be very mindful as far as what I say, what I talk about. But
It's crazy that we have to bite our
yeah,
tongues. It is crazy.
but you know what though? Here's the cool thing: we can talk about core values all day long, and we
Yeah.
can definitely talk about things with certain words and certain descriptions to be totally fine. So when it comes to core values, this is a typical question asked at interviews. What are your core values? A lot of good companies have very clear core values, which is a good thing to see. What would you say your top three core values are if you could choose three?
Oh man. Well,
I'll give you a second to think about it if you need to.
no, I mean it's like God.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm gonna fumble here. It's God, family, country. I, I mean, there is nothing. The institutions God has created, right? The family,
Mhm.
the the church, and the nation, right? The civil institutions. Those are my. I don't know if I'm answering your question the right way,
No,
but
no, no. You totally are. You totally are. For me, the main trifecta is God, family, country, always. And whenever I have a family, I'll lead my kids through that God, family, country. Within the country element is your job, paying the bills,
yeah,
serving your community, all that stuff. Okay. Within the country portion, that to me is where I apply the core values for outside the home. How do you conduct yourself? How do you carry yourself outside the home? And for me, I'd say my top three are integrity first, selfless service, and excellence. So no matter what you do, you make it the best you can make it. But if you had to narrow it down even further, was the most important core value to me, it's integrity. But here's the thing though. Here's one thing I've learned in the past 5 years or so. There is a difference between real integrity and the poster child integrity. The integrity that's displayed everywhere across all business, well, most businesses and its poster child is doing the right thing when no one's looking. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Great. Awesome. But the real integrity, the one that's much harder to accomplish and that's much more complex, is doing the right thing when everyone is looking. When the whole world's looking at you, what are you going to do?
Yeah. That's a really good and surprising distinction, right? So when who we are when no one's looking, I'm grateful that when I first became a Christian, that was emphasized, articulated, right? It's articulated.
Yeah.
We all know that. We instinctually know that when the cat's away, the mice will play, right? That's the phrase we use. There's just something when authority is out of the house, the vices creep in, right? The thoughts like, oh, it's just this paradigm shift. Like now I can get away with what, and this isn't necessarily good and evil. This is like, when my wife leaves, when my wife leaves, I can spend time doing things that she's annoyed by when she's here, whether the things are good or evil, right? So it's that kind of it's not a good and evil principle, but that's where the evil does creep in when people don't believe in authority, when people don't believe there's such a thing as a cat. The mice don't have any moral constraints, and so the hedonism essentially is the rule of the land. Serving me, myself, my selfish desires. What's there to stop me? Why should I stop? Right? That's what we're battling against. But that notion of who we are when no one is looking, that's the real you. That's what God's looking at. That's where your character lies. But I like that there's that, we all think that, but you take it to another level when you say who you are when everyone is looking at you, is how firm are your convictions, right? It's like,
right.
You may have some convictions when nobody's looking and be morally upright, but when it is put to the test, and even in many cases, there are cases when those that you respect and seem to be aligned with will oppose. For example, I talk post-millennialism all the time, but among certain groups, I'm not bringing it up yet. Right. I go to a men's group once a month, and I know most of them are Christians, good, godly guys. And I'm like, I haven't really broached that subject here, and it's not the time and place. But maybe I will at some point. Right. And that's not a character issue. But if I brought it up and a bunch of guys were like, no, you're crazy, I'm like, will I quiet down or will I stand my ground? Right. As an example. Right. So in the public eye, who are you? And true integrity is you don't change one way or the other. You are the same person in the public eye as you are when nobody's around. That's your identity, your integrity.
Yeah. Right. And here's another thing too. I don't want to discount doing the right thing when no one's looking. Like, that's good. It's good to be able to stand firm and be able to hold yourself accountable when it is just you and God. Obviously, that's very good. In my view, the real test, however, is if you get yourself straight with the Lord, fantastic. But then the next step is God saying, okay, now show it. Go out. Go in the community. Show that you are, in fact, my child. Be that.
It's an imperative. It's an imperative, right?
Right. You can't just be a hermit.
Right. We are called to shine, right? Don't hide the bushel. Don't hide your light under a bushel. Shine the light. And what is that light? It is rubbing against the grain very oftentimes. Well, this notion of integrity. Here's an important concept that I think, has not been emphasized, that needs to be emphasized. And we're seeing the problem with not emphasizing it is we're talking about personal integrity, but you as an individual are not, we have this notion that we are individuals, but the fact is we are interindividuals, right? That concept of individual versus interdividual. This is a recent concept for me as well. But an individual, the metaphor is you're a marble in a bag of marbles. Interdividuals is you are leaves on a branch.
Oh, that's
Right.
good. That's
Right.
good. I
So
like that.
we are not individuals. That individualism is this sneaky deception. We are
Yeah,
interdividuals. So
I like that.
as having integrity individually, like I
Mhm.
am an individual and I maintain my integrity,
Right.
you are a nation. You and I, my friend, are America.
Right.
Right. You may
Right.
be Ben and I may be Michael, but expanded outward, we are America. People will look at me and say, that's American. That is an American.
Mm,
And so, does America have integrity? That
mm,
is my integrity. Whatever is happening out there that anybody in the world points at and says, America's doing this, I am doing that.
right.
And if I am not speaking against it and trying to heal it and cure it, I am complicit.
Hmm. And here's the thing: the real tests of actual integrity is when you are in a position where you have to make a decision, but you know it's going to cause some pain, but you know it's the right call. Everyone around you is doing what everyone else is doing. They're going with the flow. They're embracing the narrative. They're just complying. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to. They don't want to. You know, what's the phrase? They don't want to rumble the bushes.
Ruffle feathers
That's it.
or
They don't want to. They don't
upset
want
the
to
apple
rumble feathers.
cart, upset the apple cart, and all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't want to. They don't want to risk their comforts. And of course, we're all tempted for that. We're all tempted to go with the flow. But the thing is, when you know you have to make a decision and you know the right decision is going to cause you to, well, lose friends. It's going to cause you to lose comforts. It's going to cause you to have some pain. But you know it's the right decision. And you know if you really want to call yourself a man of integrity or a woman of integrity, you go for it. You take that stand, you make that call because at the end of the day, can you go to bed and sleep peacefully at night?
James 1:1. Rejoice when you go through all kinds of trials, suffering, right? You must rejoice because you are living. You are in the center of God's will. You are
Right,
alive.
right.
Um, I, I want to, so Sound of Freedom.
That's the movie I was talking about earlier.
Hopefully that phrase won't be, banned on YouTube.
Yeah, no, those words shouldn't be banned.
So Sound of Freedom, as you're talking about paying the cost. So I listened to and I encourage everyone to listen to the Jordan Peterson interview with Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard.
Mm.
And so Tim is talking about his history and how he went down this path. And there's a parallel in his life and my life. And one of those parallels is, changing course. For him, it was, I can't do this thing that I think I'm supposed to do and keep my job. Right. I'm supposed to go rescue this little girl, but my job won't let me because they have other assignments for me. And I can't believe and so he goes to his wife and he says, his wife, the one he loves, several children by that time. I think he has like 6 kids now. And she's like, all right, well, imagine yourself at the end of your life standing before Jesus and him asking you, do you think you could have rescued that girl? And you go, yes. And he goes, did you? Then you have to answer, did you or didn't you? And if you could have and you didn't, and he goes, yeah, that'd be a bad interview. And so essentially his wife was the voice of God in his life telling him, and he was at a critical juxtaposition. It's like, as we're talking about, am I going to stand for what I believe? Am I going to act? Am I going to live my faith? Right. What Doug Wilson, preacher I listen to, whatever comes out your fingertips is your faith, right? Your fingertips, literally what you're typing, what you're doing, what you're acting upon, what you are doing is your faith. That is the exercise of your faith, what you do. And so she was the voice of God guiding him. Like, she's like, And he literally, he made the decision. I'm quitting the Homeland Security. He was a CIA guy who went to Homeland Security. I'm quitting Homeland Security so that I can go rescue these people that my job won't let me. And then his financier or his accountant comes to him and is like, you realize you're almost fully vested in your pension. And if you do this, you will lose it, right? Your government pension for all these years. And the amount was $12 million. You are going to lose $12 million when you make this decision. And I guess he'd already made the decision at that time. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Putting your money where your mouth is. And guess what? He's going to be much wealthier than $12 million because of the decision he made. They made this movie. It's successful. They're going to make another one. And not only are they making movies about his life, about his story, but he gets to keep doing what he's doing.
Right.
This is not, we're making a movie about this guy one time back in history that did this thing one time and it's amazing. We should make a movie about it. No, this is a guy doing it right now. And there is the #1 blockbuster on July 4th in the United States of America. The #1 blockbuster on July 4th.
Dutch Turley did a video of
#1.
Yeah, it beat out everything. And what's so cool about this is the film was actually done 5 years ago. But it's taken him this long to get it out there.
So Fox bought it and Disney, Fox bought it and they're like, yeah, this is not for us. And they tried to shelve it. This is Hollywood insider stuff, right?
Netflix also was like, yeah, we can't do this.
Yeah, not for us. No.
And it's one of those things where that choice of integrity you made may have caused temporary pain in your finances or whatever, but it opened the door that would have never been opened before.
Delayed gratification.
And it allowed God not just to help you grow, but also show his glory to the darkness. It also started to bring to light things that were kept in the dark for far too long.
Can you imagine a better time for that movie to come out? Can you imagine a better time for that movie to come out?
It's of God. It's so of God.
Yep. God's like, okay, got the movie made. Hold on. And be tenacious, be persistent, be tenacious and persistent, and hold on. That's what holding on means. Holding on doesn't mean just sit back. It means you grip and you pull forward. And that's,
you have to grip to hold on. Exactly. You have
to flex and, keep pulling yourself forward.
The story in my life that was a true test of my integrity, and this is long before I became a better critical thinker. This is long before I went to college and became much wiser. It was in 2015. No. Yeah, the very beginning of 2015. I was a recruiter in the United States Air Force. And I was doing a bang-up job. I was a dang good recruiter. I was making good money too. I was in Abilene, Texas. And the job I loved. I can sell anything because of the training I received in the Air Force. But over time, there were things that I started noticing that just didn't feel right. Things that went against the book, against the regulation, against the ways you're supposed to do this job. And I was a by-the-book kind of guy. What does the regulation say? You do it by the book. But in recruiting, you have to make certain goals each month. Like a quota. And if you didn't meet your goal, you were treated like a failure. Like straight up, you were treated like you were like a peasant in a room full of kings. Well, of course, the point of that is to push you harder and harder and harder to make you better. But when I showed my leadership, I'm going as hard as I can. Look at my planner. It is packed. I'm doing more work in my zone than anyone else is in our squadron. And I still wasn't meeting the goal. There were times that I did. There were times that I didn't. But the point is, there were other things going on that I started noticing. The way I was trained, things going on at the headquarters of my squadron, things heading behind the scenes that I knew were wrong. I knew in my heart they were wrong. If not straight up illegal. And so it just got to a point where it was bad. I was in a very deep pit of darkness. I would drink myself to sleep every night, just so I can go to bed. Sometimes I was terrified to fall asleep because I have to wake up the next morning and go to work. And this is the first time in my Air Force career that I hated going to work. And for the longest time, I relied on my job for happiness. And all of a sudden, I didn't have that anymore. And so I remember one day I went into work and I just was like, I need to talk to a chaplain. I need to do something about this. Fast forward, Captain Jenkins. I don't know what rank she is now, but at that time she was a captain. She worked at the mental health facility at Dyess Air Force Base, which was in Abilene. I got with her, and after months of counseling, and after months of evidence collecting, the ultimate day, it was a meeting with me, my command staff, and my squadron, and Captain Jenkins. And she basically told my leadership, she was like, look, Sergeant Harper has given the Air Force everything. He's done everything by the book with integrity. And the things that y'all are doing are forcing him to sacrifice his integrity. So here's a choice, Sergeant Harper. Do you stay in, collect the benefits, collect the payment, keep your mouth shut, and just stay comfortable? Or do you get out right now? With an honorable discharge, that was good. But there's no going back. Do you sacrifice everything that you know? Do you sacrifice all your comforts, everything you've ever known? And this was my big integrity decision. And I was young. This is long before I went to college, long before I met Felicia, long before that. This is 2015. And I remember I was in that office and it didn't take me that long. I was like, I'm out. I'm done. And let me tell you, it was hard. But I got out April 2nd, 2015. I started college May 15th, 2015. And just like that, I started going on this path to lead me where I'm at today.
It's the circumstances that, as you're going through them, are agonizing, right? You're turned in, you're focused on what's going on right in front of you, and it's agonizing. But it's in retrospect, you're like, oh, God was doing that. He was pushing me in a direction, and and I was resistant, not intentionally resisting God, but resistant because there's just friction, and friction means resistance, and but you made like logical decision. I need to talk to somebody who can hear me, and somebody who knows, somebody who's in a position to be a mediator, right? A chaplain in the military, right? Somebody who knows the military and knows your person. So from when I was talking about Tim Ballard and his moment, that moment of decision for him in his life, the one that's parallel for me, it wasn't I need to quit. Like for you, it was you were deciding, you didn't know what your options were, and they presented them to you, and so you had these two options: either go and keep your mouth shut and nothing's going to change, or go your own way. And and so for me, it was, you're fired. I mean, it was a layoff, and not technically a firing, because my boss was a Christian and my boss's boss is a Christian. So they were good guys. And then, I mean, it was my boss's boss was an elder at my church, and he's the one that hired me in the first place.
Right.
But it was not where I was supposed to be. And I knew it, and they knew it. And I didn't know that they knew it, but I certainly knew it. And so they gave me a severance. They gave me, a couple months severance, but without any warning. It was at the end of the work week on a Friday at 5 p.m., about to hit the road for the weekend. Boss calls me into his office. Clean out your desk, right? No, he didn't do it like that. It must have been extremely difficult for him to have to tell me that. And I was 33 years old with a wife and a child that was turning 1 year old in 2 days, right? This 2 days before my daughter's first birthday. Wow. And so it was like, oh, this is happening, and it wasn't a choice, right? There was no
Yeah.
choice in the matter. But then I'm at that point of decision. I'm like, well, I have no choice about this, but now I have to choose what I'm supposed to do next. And that night, I got home from work and told my wife, and I had a moment like Tim Ballard had. He told his wife, he asked her point blank, but I told my wife, I think I told her on the way home, but when I got home, she said this, and she, to this day, says, I don't remember saying that. And because if you know her, it's a little bit out of character for her.
Sure.
But it's literally almost exactly the same thing that Tim Ballard's wife said. She said, I don't want to, referring to us, our relationship, our marriage. She said, I don't want to get 10 years down the road and be the person. I don't want to get 10 years down the road and be the reason you didn't pursue your passion, your dream. And obviously that's like not her character. She wants security. The wife wants security. And that's the opposite of security. Pursuing a passion, a dream is the opposite of pursuing security. In her mindset. And in that moment, that day, that night, after I got laid off, I had a flyer for a speaking engagement, or not for a guy who was going to come, Hollywood screenwriter who was going to come and talk about his movie and Hollywood and Christianity, etc. And that guy became my best friend, like a best friend of mine. He refers to me as his best friend. He's one of my best friends, Brian Godawa. The day I got laid off is the day I met Brian Godawa, and Brian Godawa has been instrumental in helping me grow in Hollywood as a Christian as well. And he's workshops projects with me. He's like the script that got me well, I won't go into all my details, but it was in that moment that God is guiding, right? God knew I wasn't supposed to be where I was at that job, and he had me there for a season. And then he, much to my bewilderment, got me out of there. And I was in that moment of agony, but it was this grace as well, like this pervading sense of being in his hands. I don't have a job. I have a mortgage, a child, a wife, and no means of income, right? But why do I feel peace? So it was God's guidance.
Right. Well, this is a great way to end it here because it's almost time.
But I wanted to talk about white powder real quick, right? So there was a president that said, I didn't inhale. Yeah, but you have to inhale when you do that. So I don't know if anybody could. I'm not surprised by this.
The most secure building in the entire nation.
Oh yeah, they know who it is. It's like it's obvious. They know whose it is. They know exactly whose it is. And
don't talk to me and tell me that people come through all the time. No, they don't.
Right? People come and stash white powder in the secure places in the White House all the time. No, they all know who it is, and the fact that they're not disclosing who it is because it's scandalous. Right? It's scandalous.
Everyone knows.
And so, but it's that decline, right? Like one president says, I didn't inhale, and you get, or I did not have sex with that woman. I'm like, oh, now it doesn't matter, right? Like when there's a president that has, sorry, I'm gonna get myself in trouble, but the moral decline at the top, it's like it's just something to talk about. I don't care. I know there's a large percentage of those people that are doing all kinds of stuff way worse than white powder. There's stuff way worse than white powder going on at the height of this administration.
But here's the closing point. God is making it visible.
Yeah.
God is making it so visible that everyone knows. And no matter how hard the Marxist media establishment tries to hide it, it can't. And that is of God.
It's the beauty of the advancement in information technology. Like information technology is something you cannot monopolize. You can hold on to it for a while, and then somebody like Elon Musk comes and buys one of them. And I was just saying this on Bible Every Morning, closing out. A day is coming, according to the theology that I believe, a day is coming when Christians will own big tech. All right, that's it. Done. We got to go.
All right. Never surrender, never submit, Patriots.
God is in control.